If you're listening to this, you've heard the words or you know someone who have heard the word, you have cancer. There are so many things that our minds go through when that happens, when we hear those words. Today, I have a special guest who has written a book about not the process, not the scientific medical background of that whole diagnosis, but the things to think about, the people that we can rely on as we walk this journey. Do you fear what lies beyond retirement? What if it's a gateway to a life filled with purpose, meaning, and adventure rather than an end? Discover peace and fulfillment as you boldly enter this new chapter in Courageous Retirement, a Christian podcast. I'm your host, author and coach, Vona Johnson. Let's get started. With me today, I have Dana Lyons. Dana, welcome. I'm so excited
Thanks.
to have you here.
Oh, thank you for asking.
Yeah. I am just, we've known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a coincidence that we've both walked this path. And we both know what it's like to have that phone call.
Yeah.
Yours was a little different. I thought it was interesting that the doctor that didn't even really tell you that much about it. But for me, my phone call was, doc asked me to call and set up an appointment for 11 o'clock this morning. If you could come and bring your husband, we would really appreciate that.
Oh.
So you know when you hear those words what it is.
Why do they do that though? It's one of those, really, can we not come up with a better way? Like, hey, we want to at least tell you we found something and we want to talk to you about it. Not set up it's like such a silent, hidden dread, right?
Yeah.
It's the dreading, and then so now you're left hanging, and it's like to me that's torturous.
Well, and I knew. I mean, the minute she said, first of all, I want you to come in 2 hours.
Yeah.
And to bring your husband, I knew that it was a cancer diagnosis. And I always try to put myself in other people's shoes.
Sure.
And it's occurred to me that, our doctors have to do this all the time, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not all the time, especially in a small town like I live in, but enough that they know and care about the people that they're having to tell this to. And so, it has to be hard to do that as well.
Oh, for sure.
I remember that day. We were sitting there, and this man had been my doctor for 30 some years.
Wow.
No, 40 some, almost 40 years. And my husband had never really met him.
Wow.
So when I went in, he was just very direct and and I know that you're going to want to stay here locally and you're not going to do that. You're going to Sioux Falls where we have the best breast cancer center in the country. And, and we walked out and my husband was like, wow, I don't know if I liked him. He was just so
Really?
abrupt. And I said, but he knew me and he knew that he needed to be very direct or I would hem and haw. And, so yeah,
Wow.
we give them credit. This isn't what the conversation is about so much as you have cancer. Now what?
Mm-hmm.
There are so many things that go through our minds. And I don't know about you, but those days between knowing that it's there and knowing what the plan is were almost the worst. Was it that way for you as well?
Yes, here's, one, you were one of the few that actually was in my life that knew that I had cancer. I didn't tell anybody really. It was like, as an introvert, that's too much energy going out for me. But,
okay.
Between you and Marty, you're my accountability partners, and knowing that two people who I trusted and were in my life in an intimate way, that we really were accountable to each other and shared life, knowing you two actually were cancer survivors, was really reassuring to me, because I know faith is big for both of you. I knew that you're just really special for me at the time. So one, thank you. Because I've heard those stories from both of you prior to me ever getting diagnosed. So I knew I've heard some of that, along the way. And what I've come to learn with cancer, again, my grandmother's died of cancer, but I can't say like many people died in my family of cancer. It wasn't like I was very knowledgeable, like everybody else, what you know from the internet and from
Right.
the education you've gotten. So for me, I learned in the process from being told to that you have cancer to what stage it is and what are we going to do next. That process across the board, I think it's going to be, is my own opinion, is that we're all in the same boat or the same bus at that rate, at that moment, because when they first say you have cancer, you don't know what the plan is, and you don't even most of the time know what level, what stage you're at. So
Right.
everybody's in the same spot in life in the process of, is it stage 1? Is it stage 4? Did they catch it earlier? Or am I looking at my last days? And I share my
Right.
thoughts. You don't know that. And that to me is where I hope to give hope and help to people there. So I can't say it was the longest, because there are people who have waited months. I think while I was even going through it, Marty both were like, I can't believe how fast yours is going, because you guys had to wait some time. Marty in particular was sharing, had to wait a certain amount of time to get doctor appointments and readouts, and mine happened really quick. That for me, and I think this is part of why I didn't say something to people, is that I felt like every couple of days there was something new.
Yeah.
And it happened so fast.
Actually, mine did too. In fact, unlike me, I remember thinking that when my mom and I were always really close.
Yeah.
And I always shared everything that was going on in my life with her. And I didn't tell her that I had gotten called back in for a biopsy and all of those things, which was totally unlike me. She always knew everything that was going on. But for me, it was weird, because when I went in for the biopsy, and maybe we should clarify, for those that are listening that don't know our stories, you had cervical cancer.
Cervical.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mine was breast cancer. So not
Not
the same, but similar.
Mhm.
But it was so weird, because when I went in and got the mammogram and then started that process, which did go fairly quickly, people treated me differently.
How so?
My doctor's nurse was like, "Oh, when I got this and I had my mastectomy," and she just talked like it was a given that I had cancer. And when I went in for the biopsy here locally, I'll just never forget the young woman that was in the radiology department. She was literally stroking my hair and calling me sweetie, and just like, it was just, it was so weird.
Wow. I
Yeah.
didn't get that.
So, but again, very small town, whatever. Yeah. So when I went in that day, he was like, I was at stage 0. He was still in the ducts. So, and he was like,
Oh,
some people are going to tell you this isn't even cancer, and they're wrong.
wow.
Just because it's so early in the process, but then it was weird. So that was like on a Thursday. They had me in Sioux Falls, which is 3 hours away, seeing 4 different specialists on Monday. That's how fast it went.
Wow, that was faster than mine. Yeah.
What's so different about the world today, and I'm guessing this was for you too, is we can all go online and look at our medical stuff. So I was online looking at what he didn't say and reading the report, and then doing my research before I went. And I told my husband on the way in, I said, I think they're going to recommend a mastectomy, and we're going to do that. And he was like, whoa, 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 don't get ahead of yourself.
Yeah.
I think the point that you make in the book is so important for everybody. And it's like everybody's journey is different.
So different.
But the things that our mind are going to go to, the things, we're all going to do those worst case scenarios. We're going to think about, okay, God, if this is it.
It just happens. I like my doctor called to say, hey, it's Dr. So-and-so, and we found something, and I just want you to, I am not concerned whatsoever. I think we'll take care of it very quickly. That's all I heard. We'll take care of it very quickly. I want you to go see the gynecologist, oncologist. The scheduler is going to call you, but I really am not concerned. We'll take care of it, very quickly. I'm like, okay. I've had these phone calls before.
Yeah.
Biopsy, So it wasn't abnormal. And when I was in the doctor, I actually went to the doctor to talk about HRT because I was so they say I was getting close to menopause, but perimenopause was just like a storm. And I just was like, okay, there's a lot of things out there now. Our generations would say, no, you don't do that because it causes cancer, all the things. And I just went to my doctor, said, okay, educate me. So I went. I don't know what would have happened if I never went, because cervical cancer, right? It's,
Yeah.
I don't know. And so I talked to my doctor about that. So when it came back, and I've had 12 abnormal PAPs in the past. So I was used to this. It's very routine. It's like, she's like, yep. And you know the drill. It's going to come back abnormal like it usually does. And you'll have your ultrasound, because I had very, very, a couple of really traumatic doctors, biopsies with doctors who really didn't give me really great pain management. They were not the most gentle. And my doctor was like, this should not hurt like you're saying. I don't know what to tell you. So she would let me get an ultrasound. And if there was anything iffy, then of course I would get the biopsy. So she's like, the drill. I already had the ultrasound schedule. It's like, yep, I'll have that in April. As long as you don't have cancer, you're a perfect candidate for HRT. And then I got that call. So doctor calls and tells me that. Next day, the scheduler calls, very sweet. And as we're talking, I'm like, she said the same word that the doctor said. I have no idea what that means. And it wasn't like, it sounded anything like what a cancer word sounds like, the way they said it. And they said it so, it just kind of went with everything else. Didn't sound any alarming to me. And so I said, not for nothing, but the doctor yesterday said that same word. What in the world what does that word mean? And she said it again. She goes, oh, that? And I said, yeah. She said, that's cervical cancer. And it was one of those, like, when somebody gives you news I don't see her face. She said it like I was asking for yellow Jello instead of red. It was like, oh, you want the red? It was very much like, oh, it's cervical cancer. And I'm like, okay, are you telling me I had to clarify, because it was so like we're talking now. Are you saying that I have cervical cancer? Is that what you're saying? And she was like, yes. And I was like, well, why would the doctor just say that? It was very like, matter of fact, I couldn't even process what she was saying. I was like, oh, okay. And she was like, but you're going to see the oncologist. And she said, I'm so sorry. These doctors forget that our patients don't know these medical terms. And that's why I wrote in the book. I don't know if you read that part, but I just said, not for nothing. Talk to us like we're in kindergarten, because we don't know the medical terminology. And then you could say the medical word, but first tell us what that is.
Right.
Because you don't. And then I was fine. Okay, great. We'll get this scheduled. And then like within 24 hours, that fear kicks you in the gut, smacks you in the face, and you are in this whirlpool, whether I would have told you I'm pretty strong in my faith.
Yeah. And
that hit really, really strong. And it was just rapid fire fear. Oh, wait a minute. Is that? And it kind of comes, if anybody's wondering, listening, like, well, what does that sound like? Because what's in my head, if you heard my head, it probably doesn't sound like yours. Here's what mine, it was like one thought led to another and to another, which it started at 5 miles an hour and went to 100 within minutes. And it was something like this. Wow, that's weird. I just went to one of our family reunions. I hadn't seen my entire family in probably 20 years. I was like, that's the first one. I wonder if it was the last. I wonder if that's the last one. And the reason why I was there is because it was my last one, not theirs. Oh my gosh, I wonder if I'm going to see my youngest daughter graduate high school. Oh my gosh, 4 out of my 5 kids aren't even married. I wonder if I'm going to get to go to their wedding. I wonder if I'm going to find out where Sam's going to go to college. I wonder, and you just get, and then I wonder if my husband's going to get remarried. I wonder if I'm going to make it, and it just hits till finally you are whipped so hard in that whirlpool that I finally, Vona, I had to do something that I would do with all the women I mentor and all the women who've been in my classes. I had to call time out, because I can feel it taking me on a journey of a really bad whirlpool fear where I was spinning. And I was bawling. And I just said to God, no, wait a minute, time out here, Dana, time out. Because there was something that separated for me. I'm swirling in fear. That may not be true. And I just went, time out, Dana. Just like I would ask you, I had to ask myself these questions as a coach, as a friend, like, what do you know to be true?
Right.
And it hit me. It was like one of those, okay, serious question. That's not just like this nice churchy, praise the Lord, Jesus is in charge. It wasn't like when we hit hard places, that's when what you believe, it's rubber meets the road. It's where you get to actually walk that out. And I understand the wrestling of, God, why? Like, why are you doing this to me now? But it felt very like it was hitting me out of the blue.
Mm-hmm.
I was back in the gym. I just became I used to be a personal trainer, a nutritional coach. I was back in the gym finally. I haven't done that in years. I became a bar instructor while I was waiting for my diagnosis because I felt great. I was doing well at work. I was writing. I was like super excited. I felt wonderful. So this was really came out of nowhere. And I had to really ask myself, this is a serious question. I'm not asking for the right answer. I'm asking, what do you know is true? And it really just came to me. It's like, okay, Dana, what is that? And I just said, well, I do know that there is life after cancer. I do know that. Even if it's stage 4, that's true. There are enough people. You could just even if you only found one person, you have to say that's true. Number 2, there's life after menopause. Look at any woman gone through it, still living today, and they're thriving, a lot of them. That's true. And I had a few times, and I just went, all right, my best days could still be ahead of me. And from that moment on, things changed.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we don't get hit with that.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
We don't get hit with that. That fear is very common to all of us.
Well, I think one of the points you made in the book is really important to land on, and that is that it's okay to allow yourself to have those doubts and fears. You don't have to question your faith just to be able to allow yourself to go there. And I think there are some people that would beat themselves up for having some of those questions and some of those fears. And I think that's a really important point to make. It's okay.
It's okay. And I think that wrestle is all part of faith, our walk.
Yeah.
And not only that, I don't even think you need a lot of faith. So some people are like, well, she just needs more faith. No, baloney. You need a mustard seed, the Lord says. A mustard seed. If all you need is a mustard seed, you don't need a lot. But I think part of that whole process and wrestle is part of the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not the other point that I think is important is, as I was reading the book, it occurred to me because of that the process that you talk about in the book, and we're not going to take the time to go all the way through all the different things because it's worth the time. And there's both a book and a journal. And here, I'm going to hold it up. We have, if you have cancer, now what? But it doesn't have to be just cancer.
Yeah.
I mean, the process, the questions, the things that we stop and ask ourselves, and that can apply to any difficult situation in our life.
Sure.
And I think it's good that, you wrote your experience there, but it can be translated to a lot of different kinds of situations. And another point that you made that I thought was really, and it wasn't, some of them you kind of kept coming back to and come around to, but one of them that jumped out at me is that because you had been in the Word and had been, spending time getting to know the Lord in your journey, when it did hit, you knew where your safe place was.
Mm-hmm.
And not everybody has that. That doesn't mean that it's any less. Just like you just said, you don't have to have a huge faith for that to matter. And I honestly think sometimes those kinds of things, whether it's cancer or an accident or whatever, it's those things, what I'll say it like this. One of my favorite songs has a line in it that says that we're all just one phone call away from our knees. or we just fall to the floor and pray because we don't know what else to do.
Yep.
Right?
For sure. Oh, for sure. And here's the deal. I don't even think you need, for some that will get the call, that actually not starts the journey, but that is what brings them to faith sometimes, because you start questioning life. I look at life totally different now, from a different lens that I didn't before. And I had faith in a walk, but for some that actually, you hear their story, they're like, that actually made me question, what is faith? What is my faith? What do I believe? And it's so unique to everybody.
What are just a few of the highlights that, it's like we've kind of talked about that initial part. What are some of the other things, words of advice that you might give somebody as they walk their own journey?
Yeah, wow, there's a lot of them. There are two in particular I feel like I should highlight. Most important one by far is, there was a moment in time where I was leading a Bible study. I was doing my homework, and literally, sometimes in these Bible studies, there are like extra questions you could do, extra activities after. I was like, all right, I love those. Sometimes I think that's where the gold is, right? So I was like, yeah, I'll do one. So I did one. One caught my attention, and one was, hey, go through the Gospels and find all the places where Jesus heals people, and find the common, like what's the common denominator or something like that. And I just got a few in, and literally it is probably the biggest pivot for me, because it hit me loud and clear while I was going through this. You read in the scripture about Bartimaeus, and I just say to the person listening, put yourself in his shoes. Here's a blind man crying out, can't see, but can hear. The hustle and bustle of Jesus walking by. Just picture yourself. You don't have answers. What you're going through is much bigger than you. It seems impossible. And yet Jesus is for all of us, right? Whether you believe in him or not, he is for all of us. He's going by, and a crowd tells this blind man who can't see but could hear the commotion of Jesus coming, crying out, Jesus of Nazareth, have mercy on me. And I did this study, and it hit me it was like a just 2x4 hit me in the face. At that moment, I knew, and for everybody listening, all what we're going through might be impossible for you, but it's never impossible for the one who is the healer. And that we can have the best doctors. We could go to the best therapists, have the best therapies, meds, and everything. And it became very crystal clear. It is all about God's mercy. And so at that moment in time, Vona, I started praying over myself, and I prayed over everybody who calls me to say, hey, my friend's got cancer, will you pray? Or, we're going through a rough time in our family, or I'm facing this, or some big impossible. Is God grant mercy? Because you can still, I had people like, well, what about this person? They did what we would classify as all the right things, and they didn't make it. I don't know why I made it. I don't know why you're still here, Vona. It's his mercy at the end of the day. And so crying out for God's mercy. If there's no other prayer that you know to pray, is pray for that. And pray for that over your loved ones. If you're listening and you have a loved one going, it's like, God, grant mercy. I say to somebody, grant mercy for more time, grant mercy, for healing, grant mercy, whatever. And then the second one is, again, life can get so, what we're going through, no matter if it's cancer or something else, can get so big and can consume us. And you hear this in stories with people who've got cancer. I don't know if this was true for you. It can easily become center stage, and all you think about, all you're dealing with, all the doctor's appointments, the meds, and then you have to study your own and all the things. Another big aha moment for me was when I realized cancer's trying to take center stage, and there is something for me to learn if I'm willing to lean in and listen to what it's trying to tell me. But I chose to take it off center stage, because if the truth is, it will never be bigger than God and more powerful than God, although it's powerful, and many lose their life because of cancer. I don't want to downplay how powerful. If it will never be bigger than God, then it will never get center stage, and it will never get more attention than God gets in my life. I have to put it back where in its rightful place, knowing I have to go through this, but you will not get more of me than God gets in me. And still, you can have a mustard seed of faith and still do that. So it's those things, that it's the process, because before long, it kind of can consume you. And then your energy's going there. It's like, well, hold on. it will get some of your energy, but it doesn't have to get all of it,
Yeah. One of the points you made was, I won't call cancer a gift, but it did help me. Yeah. I actually, when I went through cancer myself, at one point I was having a conversation with someone and I called it the gift of cancer, because in so many ways it too brought me to a point where it was like, wait a minute, what am I doing with this time that I have on this earth? And I'll tell you what, but there's nothing like a diagnosis to have you go, wait, stop. If this is it, if this is the end, what do I need to do? What do I not want to leave undone? And for me, it was finishing my book. I'd been dabbling in it for years, but just never really getting it done. And boy, there was nothing like that. Fortunately, I knew even when I had the surgery, that was going to be it. I didn't have to go through treatment and all the things that some people aren't so lucky and do have to do that. But I also knew that that was that point at which it turned, it changed, and it was like, I have to do this.
Yeah.
It changed so many things. So yeah.
Yeah, it makes you look at life a little different. And here's also the thing that I point out in this book. I think so much focus is on, well, you want to live, right? Like, I mean, you got to be healed. Part of the process is some people come to this place of total peace to go, no, I'm okay with letting life play out, and this is it for me, and have peace about that.
Yeah.
That too is part of the journey. And your team needs to know that. Your team, your family, your community needs to know that, and really, I think, respect that decision. And it's not always easy, but I have to say, leading up to, going through it, then 1 year recovery, hitting my 1 year, I don't know what it was like for you. My 1 year recovery was actually, I think, emotionally harder hitting the 1 year than it was some of the initial stuff in a different way.
Yeah. I don't even remember it, so it must not have been. I don't know. Yeah. So I passed my 5-year last year. So I'm on my year 6 now. And, it's one of those things you talked about celebrating being cancer free. And I remember reading the statistics, and it was, if I have the double mastectomy or the mastectomy, it was a personal choice to go with both. But I remember them saying, I would have a 97% chance of never having cancer again. And I just remember saying, you don't know that. We never, ever have a guarantee that we will never have cancer again. But we can't dwell on that.
Mm-hmm.
We can't look at, the, well, but, it's like, and I love how you just said, live your life, live it. If you choose to live it. Mm-hmm. And I think that sometimes, that's really the underlying message on Courageous Retirement across the board is, we have been given life. We are here for a reason. And we can either get, how is it they say in Shawshank Redemption? We can either get busy dying or we can get busy living. And I think if you're here, it's because you know that you're here for a reason, and God wants you to get busy living. Mm-hmm. And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think that too often we could get stuck at looking back in what we no longer have. Like maybe you have to change some things in your life due to whatever cancer does to your body. You can no longer do some things, or you're just angry that this is not what you wanted for your life, but you're still here, and it's your best. I'm a full believer. This really was one of my truths. My best days can still be ahead of me. Literally your best day can still be ahead of you. Menopause, cancer, stage 4, it still can. There are plenty. Find one person to just hold on to say, okay, that happened for you. I think it could happen for me.
Yeah. That's my motto here is, this is the best season. Retirement, of course, what I'm talking about. You're not quite there yet, but it won't be, turn around. It won't be far.
I know.
But it's such an amazing season, and we can stop and we can look back at all the things that God has brought us through and realize that We are here for a reason. Up until the very last breath, there's a reason. You hit on the fact that not everybody that goes through it will come out cured, healed. It's the perspective. Last episode of the show, I talked about the fact that our congregation buried a young man that was my son's age. 2 months ago, he had some pain, but had just been assured that it was just nothing to worry about until they found out that it was. And he went so quickly. And it was just really amazing for me to watch the family. You know, it wasn't doom and gloom, and it was bright colors and tie-dye t-shirts and, you know, celebrating the man that he was, even though it was cut short. And to me, that testimony of even at 42 saying he had a good life, he had an amazing family, and he loved his Lord.
Yeah.
Sometimes people need to be reminded that we weren't put here to live eternity on earth.
Yeah, and you don't know how long we're each going to have.
Right.
You just don't. You know, it's
right.
I think we all try to live as long as we can. I picked up this decision once I was in recovery, is to live like I'm always facing cancer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Eat like I'm facing cancer, drink like I'm facing, live like I'm facing cancer, knowing I'm not.
Yeah, I like that.
Because it helps guide your decisions. It helps helps me keep me alert and alive to be all in, because I think that's part of the hardest part for me right now is, what are we doing? We're worrying about posts and who likes things. And
yeah, right.
I mean, I want to be able to see the Lord face to face, knowing I ended better than I started, and I ended going all in. And I think cancer can wake you up to that, or any major thing. And, I say not everybody is going to be healed this side of heaven. It was, in many ways, there was gifts in cancer that I learned along the way. There's a lot about it that's so mysterious to me. Why kids get it, I don't know.
Right.
Why people go younger, I don't know. There are things I would love to sit with the Lord and just like, okay, help me understand that one. I think we all do.
Right.
So I wouldn't call that a gift. I wish nobody would have to get that. But for me, when I leaned in to learn, there were gifts for me that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
Right.
And so in many ways, I'm thankful because the Lord was faithful through it all. I wouldn't have grown and had the intimacy that I had with him had I not gone through that. And I wouldn't have had the intimacy with my husband, my children, and some of my close friends. I shared with you that I didn't share with some of my even family members. I just didn't have, whether I don't see them all the time or whatever, I just didn't share that we have these moments. And it was because of cancer, dealing with cancer, that I got to do that. Otherwise, why we can tend to go in robot mode and just be busy, I don't know, but it wakes you up.
It does. It absolutely does.
Yeah.
The book is really, like I told you before we hopped on, it's one of those books that I know that I will always have at least one copy around. So when that person that I know or care about gets a diagnosis, I can loan it to them and say, here, read this. And I encourage people to look at it from that standpoint of a resource. And like I said, it's not a medical, it's not a how-to, it's just some things to think about to help you process what it is. So since then, I mean, you've been busy. You wrote the book, but you have you've got your podcast, you've got community where people can come and kind of learn how to look at life from that perspective of hope. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? If somebody wants to find out more about Dana Lyons, how can they do that?
Oh, my heart is always to give hope, because I think if you could give hope, and I learned this just helping women in marriages when they were in total desperation and trying to rebuild their life. My heart is always to give hope, because if you can help somebody grab hold of hope, you could help somebody make it another minute, hour, day. And if I could help you there, then I could inspire some courage that's already within you. And in the process, it's building your faith somehow. Mustard seed, big step, doesn't matter. And then hopefully encourage you every step of the way. It's the 4 pillars I live from. But I have this urgency right now. I have this urgency that, you can't see it, but on my desk right here is, you are running out of time. Just give it away. because I feel like there are things that we've all been given, things to steward, things we've learned. And I think our stories, I do own my own publishing company. I believe stories are so important. It's how we encourage one another. It's how we help each other. It's how we actually just sit with a cup of coffee and tell me what's going on with you. We tell our stories. That's how we get through life. And that's how history's passed down. To me, it's a story is so powerful. And to me, no matter what I write or what I do, hope is the biggest one, because without hope, I mean, like, what do you got? Life can get really dark and you get stuck staring at the things that just make you swirl. So they can find me at greatandracenterprises.com. They could social media, I'm under Great and Grace Enterprises. I do have the Get Well, Live Well, Thrive podcast that I don't advertise that one. It is out there for anybody, but I don't advertise that one. That's just me mentoring the women that I mentor. So it's for anybody, but it's a lot more geared to wholeness, health, and faith in particular, of how it affects the rest of our body.
Yeah.
And then the Great and Grace podcast that I have is really just other women that I meet, because I think we are stronger than together when we live shoulder to shoulder than, apart. And so for me, it's, we're created for community. So whatever you're going through, maybe they're in retirement right now and their bubble has gotten really small because they're not in the workplace, or maybe they're trying to figure out what's next, or maybe they've gotten hit with a diagnosis and you just going out, or your social, it all has kind of gotten small. It's don't isolate, because part of the healing and growth and vibrancy of life is being in community. And so whether you're trying to figure out what's after retirement, what's after cancer, it's like, do it with other people, because that's really important. That's where hope stays alive, I think.
Yeah. Well, and our worlds get smaller and smaller all the time, naturally. So let's not hurry that along. That's, as we were talking a while ago, that was one of the things that come up for me with parents with dementia. There's a chance. I don't know. And I don't need to know. I do know that I have today. And I want to make the most of today.
That's right.
Totally. That's really all we can do. So anyway, I just really want to thank you for taking the time to visit with us today. Congratulations on the book. Yet another book. Dana has several out there that are definitely worth the read. I think that this one's really going to have an impact on some folks who really need direction in a dark time in their lives. So thank you so much for that and for talking to us today.
Oh, thanks, Vona. It was so great to be with you.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, friend. I always enjoy a conversation with Dana, and I'm just really blessed to call her friend. She makes a point in the book. We didn't really talk about it during the interview, but she makes a point in the book that in this process, and really in all processes in life, we need to learn how to become our own best friend. We have to make decisions that are right for us, not the critic, not the analyzer, the friend. So the one who listens without fixing, the one who says, I've got you. The practice became a vital part of her treatment plan. That's what she talked about. But one of the things that I really enjoyed that really I think relates to Courageous Retirement is she says in her book, life keeps changing. Some seasons will require surrender. Others will require more courage. That's what we're all about here, right? Is living through those seasons that require courage, being able to stand up and do what we need to do to live out our faith. In joy. So I just want to thank you so much for stopping by today. It's such a blessing to me every time to just know that you're here listening, hopefully being encouraged to live your more. So until next time, I just want to encourage you to keep living your more with courage. And remember, your best season may just be beginning.